Hello, miladies of inestimable value. Solitude is the fortress of the strong. Machiavelli. Most people fear silence because it exposes them, but for the Sigma female, silence is not an enemy. It's her battlefield, her throne, and her weapon. Studies show that the average person spends nearly 85% of their waking life in constant interaction, talking, texting, posting, performing. Yet the Sigma female dares to break this rule. She thrives where others panic, in the unlit corners where the world forgets to look. She doesn't choose loneliness out of accident, heartbreak, or weakness. No, she selects it like a sniper chooses her vantage point. Her distance is not absence, it's strategy. Her disinterest is not coldness, it's calculation. And while everyone else is busy drowning in the noise of attention, she sharpens herself in silence until her presence becomes impossible to ignore. Now, don't get it twisted. She's not some cartoon villain stroking a cat in the dark. She laughs. She lives. She can even make a joke about people who panic when the Wi-Fi goes down. But behind that humor lies a Machiavellian core that understands something most of society refuses to face. Real power doesn't beg to be seen. It can afford to disappear. This video is not for the faint-hearted, the crowd chasers, or the attention addicts. This is for the loners, the Sigma females who walk alone. Not because they can't belong, but because they know belonging comes with chains. And tonight, we're going to unravel why her solitude is both her greatest shield and her sharpest sword. Number 1. She is both the threat and the sanctuary. That's the paradox of a Sigma female, and it's what makes her so difficult to define. To those on the outside, she can seem unsettling, even intimidating. She doesn't bend to social pressure, she doesn't chase approval, and she doesn't play by rules written for the masses. That refusal alone makes her a threat. In a world where conformity keeps things predictable, her independence exposes just how fragile the system really is. People fear her not because she attacks, but because she doesn't need what they think she should crave: status, validation, or belonging. Yet for herself, she is the only place she can fully rest. Her solitude is her refuge, the space where she drops all masks and answers only to her own standards. She has built herself into a fortress where her thoughts are sharper, her choices freer, and her peace unshaken. This duality means she's untouchable. Outsiders can't penetrate her, but she can always retreat into herself without losing balance. Where most collapse when left alone, she grows stronger. The irony is that people often mistake her sanctuary for coldness. They don't see that she's built it as protection, not rejection. By not depending on anyone to anchor her, she avoids the constant cycles of betrayal and disappointment that others drown in. And that self-reliance is what makes her dangerous in the eyes of society. Someone who doesn't need to be controlled, persuaded, or rewarded with crumbs of attention can't be managed. She becomes unpredictable, and in a world obsessed with control, unpredictability is power. At the same time, her sanctuary isn't just walls, it's also a source of clarity. In her own company, she sees things others overlook. She notices how people reveal themselves in contradictions, how systems run on illusion, and how weakness is disguised as power. That insight gives her an edge, making her both feared and sought after. Being the threat and the sanctuary means she's never fully understood, and that's exactly how she wants it. The world can fear her, misunderstand her, even envy her, but it can't break her. She holds the rarest position of all, the one who doesn't need anyone, yet can't be ignored. That's where her power lives. Number 2, she understands that power is lonely. Machiavelli wrote that rulers are either hated or feared, and a Sigma female takes that lesson to heart in her own way. She doesn't seek attention, applause, or validation, but she does recognize that maintaining control over her life, her choices, and her mind comes at a cost. Solitude. Unlike others who see loneliness as a void to fill, she treats it as the price of sovereignty. It's not punishment or weakness. It's the natural consequence of refusing to surrender her autonomy to anyone. In a world where most people measure influence by popularity or proximity, she knows that real power comes from independence. To achieve that independence, she must often stand apart, observe without interference, and make decisions without compromise. That separation makes her appear distant, even intimidating, but it also shields her from the manipulation, petty drama, and distractions that trap those who crave approval. She's aware that being feared or misunderstood is simply part of the territory, a confirmation that she is playing by rules she alone defines. Her loneliness isn't a void she suffers. It's a space where she sharpens herself. While others surround themselves with noise to feel alive, she cultivates silence to think, plan, and evolve. It allows her to see clearly, act decisively, and maintain the kind of freedom that most people never even recognize exists. Solitude is her workshop, her strategy room, and her protective shield all at once. By embracing the loneliness that comes with power, she achieves something rare. She becomes untouchable without being aggressive, sovereign without dominating, and free without losing herself in the process. Solitude is not a cost she resents. It's the law of her existence, the quiet proof that she is, in every sense, her own ruler. Number 3. She sees society as theater, not reality. While most people accept culture at face value, taking trends, rules, and hierarchies as truths, the Sigma female understands that almost everything around her is performance. People play roles, institutions stage illusions, and even friendships and alliances often come with hidden scripts. She doesn't judge, she doesn't rant, and she doesn't pretend to be part of it, she observes. By remaining in the audience, she gains clarity. She watches how people reveal themselves when they think no one is looking, how ambition and fear drive choices, and how appearances are carefully curated to manipulate perception. This distance gives her insight that insiders rarely get. She doesn't get caught up in the applause, the gossip, or the power plays because she knows they are temporary and often meaningless. Choosing not to step onto the stage isn't passivity, it's strategy. She maintains control over herself while the world performs around her. This detachment makes her hard to predict and impossible to influence. Others scramble to keep up with the narrative, but she moves at her own pace, guided by her own rules rather than society's script. Her awareness of the theatrical nature of society also protects her from being exploited. While others are distracted by illusions of status, popularity, or moral superiority, she sees the mechanics behind it all. That knowledge gives her an almost invisible power. She doesn't need to dominate the stage to understand and influence the outcomes. In a world addicted to performance, she is a rare observer who recognizes reality exists beyond the spotlight. Remaining in the audience allows her to absorb, analyze, and act only when it truly matters, making her presence deliberate, meaningful, and unmistakably potent. She walks through society untouched by its theatrics because she refuses to play along, and that is the essence of her unmatched freedom. Number 4. She understands people better when she's absent. Unlike most who think the only way to know someone is to be constantly involved, the Sigma female has learned that distance reveals far more than proximity ever could. When she steps back, she observes without the interference of her own presence. She watches how people behave when they think she isn't paying attention, how their words, actions, and small habits reveal intentions they'd otherwise hide. Distance gives her clarity. It allows her to see patterns, inconsistencies, and hidden motives that are invisible in the heat of interaction. While others are trapped in the emotion, drama, or noise of daily engagement, she analyzes calmly, like a strategist reviewing a battlefield map. She doesn't need to be at the center of every conversation to understand the dynamics at play. In fact, being removed makes the patterns far more obvious. Her absence also serves as a test. She notices who respects boundaries, who craves control, and who reveals their true colors when she isn't around to manage impressions. People often underestimate her because she doesn't force herself into situations. But this is exactly what gives her power. She gathers information effortlessly while others struggle to hide or perform. This ability makes her insight almost surgical. She knows who can be trusted, who can be influenced, and who will eventually falter, all without confrontation. She doesn't need to manipulate. She simply observes, and the truth of people unfolds naturally. For the Sigma female, absence is not emptiness. It's a lens that sharpens perception, a space where clarity emerges from distance. She understands that the world doesn't reveal itself through forced participation, but through careful, patient observation. By stepping back, she sees not only the reality of others, but the strategy she must adopt to navigate it, making her presence, when she chooses it, deliberate, powerful, and impossible to ignore. Number 5. She rejects emotional inflation. In a world where feelings are constantly commodified, exaggerated, and traded like currency, the Sigma female refuses to play the game. Most people measure worth by reactions, likes, or the intensity of emotion, treating validation as a form of wealth. She sees through it. She doesn't inflate her own emotions to impress, manipulate, or earn approval, and she doesn't hand out validation like it's a social obligation. To her, giving excessive attention to fleeting feelings is a form of self-devaluation. She knows that letting emotions run unchecked, or treating them as a bargaining chip, only leaves a person exposed, vulnerable, and dependent on the whims of others. Instead, she treats her emotional energy like a scarce resource, deliberate, intentional, and fiercely guarded. She invests it only where it matters, and never where it can be exploited. This rejection of emotional inflation doesn't make her cold or unfeeling. It makes her disciplined. She experiences life fully, but refuses to be swept into the mass hysteria of dramatized reactions. She understands that most people perform emotions for social gain, and she refuses to be swayed or distracted by it. Her equilibrium is unshakable because she doesn't buy into the hype of emotional currency. By treating her own emotions with restraint and recognizing the artificial inflation of others, she gains a rare clarity. She can navigate relationships, work, and society without being manipulated by manufactured sentiment or peer pressure. While others get lost in the constant bidding for attention and validation, she moves with precision, conserving her energy and using her judgment as her compass. Her refusal to treat emotions like currency is a quiet but powerful statement. She is sovereign over her own inner world. She neither begs for affirmation nor surrenders to emotional chaos. In doing so, she becomes untouchable in a culture addicted to feelings, and her control over herself becomes one of her most formidable forms of power. Number 6. She's immune to manufactured status, titles, followers, influencer clout, and the hollow hierarchies that so many scramble to climb hold no sway over her. While the world obsesses over recognition, popularity, and the approval of those deemed important, she measures influence differently. To her, true power isn't accumulated through numbers, applause, or symbolic positions. It's measured in autonomy, self-respect, and the ability to walk away without consequence. She watches the frenzy around social gods and fake hierarchies with quiet detachment. The louder the world proclaims someone's status, the less it impresses her. She recognizes that much of what society elevates is illusion, carefully staged images, selective exposure, and shallow influence masquerading as authority. She doesn't need to prove herself or compete in that theater because her value isn't determined by the crowd's applause. What sets her apart is that she isn't threatened by prestige or intimidated by power displays. People can flaunt fame, flaunt connections, and flaunt wealth, but she doesn't participate in the performance. Her independence allows her to disengage at will, leaving those who rely on social validation scrambling to maintain appearances. That capacity to detach makes her presence and absence equally formidable. She doesn't need followers. Her autonomy is its own authority. Her immunity to manufactured status also gives her a rare clarity. She sees motives behind every climb, every alliance, and every desperate attempt to be seen. She doesn't waste energy chasing illusions or inflating her ego to compete. Instead, she conserves her focus for what is real, what matters, and what enhances her sovereignty. In the end, her power lies in what no one else can buy: freedom. She walks through a world obsessed with fabricated hierarchies untouched, unshaken, and untethered. While others trade their authenticity for applause, she remains sovereign over herself, and that is a kind of authority no social currency can ever replicate. Number 7. She views love through the lens of power. For a Sigma female, romance isn't about fairy tale gestures, candlelit dinners, or the theatrics of infatuation that most people obsess over. Love is a strategic game, and she approaches it like chess. Every word spoken, every action taken, every commitment considered is measured not just for emotion, but for consequence. She asks herself silently, often instinctively, does this strengthen me? Does this compromise me? Could this be used against me? This doesn't mean she is incapable of feeling. In fact, she feels deeply, but her depth is paired with discernment. She understands that emotions, when mishandled or exploited, can be used as weapons. Most people enter relationships blinded by desire, naive to the ways dependency, guilt, or charm can manipulate them. She sees all of it and refuses to surrender herself blindly. Her approach makes her both feared and fascinating. To outsiders, her caution can seem cold, calculated, or even ruthless. But to those who understand her, it is a form of mastery, a way to protect her autonomy while still engaging with intimacy on her own terms. She doesn't give away trust or affection recklessly. She invests it like capital, only where there is mutual respect, safety, and alignment with her values. Love, in her world, is never an excuse for vulnerability without control. She recognizes patterns of power in every interaction: who dominates the narrative, who seeks influence, and who attempts to extract emotional currency. By evaluating relationships through this lens, she maintains sovereignty over her heart while navigating human connection with precision. Ultimately, her view of love is a reflection of her broader philosophy. Autonomy is paramount, control is essential, and nothing, not even affection, should compromise her independence. She loves strategically because surrendering blindly is a luxury she cannot afford. In her hands, love is not weakness. It is another arena where intelligence, insight, and discipline define strength. Number 8. Her relationships are non-democratic. She doesn't approach connection with the idea that every opinion, every desire, or every need should carry equal weight. For a Sigma female, equality in relationships isn't about fairness. It's about maintaining her autonomy. She understands that giving equal ground to everyone risks diluting her focus, compromising her values, and eroding the freedom she guards fiercely. Instead, she practices selective alignment. She keeps only those whose presence complements her life rather than complicates it. Every bond is measured against a single question. Does this person enhance my sovereignty or hinder it? Those who enrich her world are welcomed with consideration and clarity. Those who drain energy, demand compliance, or push for control are filtered out without hesitation. This approach doesn't make her selfish, it makes her strategic. She recognizes that most relationships are transactional, consciously or not, and that blindly participating in the democracy of emotional give and take often leads to compromise she cannot afford. By placing her autonomy above social convention, she maintains control over her life while still cultivating meaningful, functional bonds. Her selective alignment also acts as a natural defense. She avoids the common traps of dependency, manipulation, or emotional exploitation because she enters no relationship out of obligation or habit. Each connection exists on her terms, and her presence in it is always deliberate. In essence, she governs her relationships the way a ruler governs territory. She prioritizes stability, influence, and freedom, and she doesn't shy away from removing those who threaten them. Her non-democratic approach ensures that her world remains uncluttered by unnecessary conflict, and that her energy is reserved for people and projects that truly matter. In a society obsessed with compromise and consensus, her refusal to democratize her life makes her untouchable, focused, and entirely self-directed. Number 9, she treats intimacy as a calculated risk. Unlike most people who rush into closeness seeking comfort, validation, or the illusion of security, the Sigma female approaches connection with caution, precision, and intent. For her, intimacy is not a casual indulgence. It's an investment portfolio. Each relationship, each gesture of trust, is carefully weighed for potential gain versus potential loss. She doesn't give herself away freely because she knows the cost of misjudgment can be catastrophic: emotional exploitation, loss of autonomy, or even betrayal. Her approach makes her highly selective. She analyzes not just the person, but the context, their patterns, motives, and stability. If the risk of exposure outweighs the potential reward, she withdraws, often before the other person even realizes it. That selective acceptance keeps her life uncluttered by unnecessary drama, and it ensures that when she does choose to open up, her energy and vulnerability are invested wisely. This mindset also reshapes how she engages with love, friendship, and collaboration. She understands that most people treat intimacy casually, mixing dependency, expectation, and emotion without consideration for consequences. She refuses to play that game. To her, closeness is valuable precisely because it is scarce and deliberate. By controlling access to her inner world, she maintains leverage, independence, and self-respect. Her calculated risk isn't coldness, it's strategy. She can love, trust, and connect deeply, but only when the conditions align with her principles. When others see her as distant or hard to reach, it's not a flaw, it's the result of careful assessment, experience, and the refusal to gamble her sovereignty recklessly. In essence, intimacy in her life is a transaction of power and prudence. She treats it seriously because she knows that once given, it can't be retracted without consequence. And in a world where most surrender their boundaries for fleeting comfort, her deliberate approach makes her untouchable, self-directed, and, paradoxically, far more human than those who scatter their trust like coins into the wind. Number 10. Her detachment is not coldness. It's fireproofing. That one truth about a Sigma female confuses almost everyone around her. People are quick to label her distant, aloof, or even heartless. But what they don't realize is that she has learned, often the hard way, that unchecked emotions can spread like wildfire. They consume everything in their path: identity, peace of mind, even freedom. She isn't trying to extinguish warmth. She's building walls that stop flames before they ever reach her. The Sigma female has probably seen what happens when someone gives themselves away too freely. The manipulation, the exploitation, the slow erosion of self. She refuses to be a casualty of that. Her detachment is her insurance policy, her way of staying intact when others burn out under the weight of relationships, drama, and obligations. It's not that she doesn't feel. She feels deeply, but she doesn't let her feelings run the show. To her, detachment isn't the absence of love or care. It's the discipline to protect herself from being consumed by them. People who don't understand her mistake her silence for lack of emotion. In reality, she's constantly weighing the cost of letting someone in. Every connection is evaluated. Will this strengthen me, or will it drain me? If it's the latter, she withdraws without hesitation. That decision isn't cruel, it's survival. She knows that once emotional fires start, they don't politely burn in one corner. They spread. And she would rather be accused of being cold than watch her life go up in smoke. Her detachment also makes her strangely magnetic. The fact that she doesn't throw herself into every bond makes her presence valuable. People sense that if she chooses to stay, it's not by accident or neediness, but by deliberate choice. That kind of rarity unsettles some and fascinates others. It also means she can walk through storms without collapsing like those who depend on constant validation. The Sigma female's detachment is not a weakness to be fixed. It is her mastery over herself. It's how she keeps her inner world calm in a society addicted to chaos. She isn't frozen, she's fireproof. And that is what makes her untouchable. Number 11. She learns from shadows, not spotlights. While most people are busy performing for attention, approval, or recognition, the Sigma female avoids the glare entirely. She doesn't need applause to validate her observations. In fact, she thrives where others are blind. She studies the subtle behaviors, the small gestures, and the unguarded moments people reveal when they believe no one is watching. That is where she finds the truth, not in statements made for show, but in actions born from authenticity, instinct, or unconscious habit. This is how she extracts power. By observing without interference, she deciphers motives, weaknesses, and patterns that remain invisible to those entangled in the performance of daily life. While everyone else is distracted by curated appearances, she is absorbing information like a strategist scanning a battlefield. She doesn't just notice what people do, she understands why and how those behaviors can be predicted, navigated, or leveraged. Her ability to learn from shadows also makes her exceptionally cautious. She rarely rushes into judgment or reaction because she knows that the truest insight comes from patience and distance. She waits, observes, and pieces together behaviors over time, creating a map of human interaction that gives her foresight few possess. This quiet observation makes her unpredictable to others, even when she appears detached or disinterested. She also recognizes the contrast between public and private behavior, and she uses that knowledge to navigate relationships, negotiations, and social dynamics with precision. People reveal more when they believe the world isn't watching, and she pays attention. That's where she gathers leverage, avoids traps, and protects herself from manipulation. In the end, her power doesn't come from being seen or celebrated. It comes from understanding the unseen. While others chase the spotlight, she builds her strength in the shadows, quietly mastering the rules everyone else misses, and turning observation into influence without anyone ever realizing how much she knows. Number 12. Her loneliness is a camouflage, not a weakness. Most people misread her distance, assuming that her solitude signals fragility, sadness, or social inadequacy. In reality, it's the opposite. She has deliberately crafted her isolation as a shield, a way to move through life without being monitored, judged, or manipulated. Her distance isn't accidental or pitiable, it's strategic. By keeping herself separate, she becomes difficult to predict, and even harder to control. People often try to insert themselves into her life, thinking they can influence or guide her, but her solitude acts like a cloak, hiding her intentions, her strategies, and the depth of her understanding. She doesn't need to explain herself, justify her absence, or participate in the endless currents of social expectation. In this way, her loneliness is a source of freedom, allowing her to operate on her own terms. This camouflage also sharpens her perception. Because she's not entangled in constant interaction, she can observe others with clarity, noting patterns, motives, and hidden behaviors. She sees who is genuine, who is opportunistic, and who is simply performing for recognition. Her apparent distance encourages people to reveal more than they would around someone fully present, and she absorbs that knowledge quietly, without being drawn into unnecessary conflict or drama. Her solitude is not emptiness. It's a strategic advantage. She chooses when to engage and with whom, making every interaction deliberate. Others may mistake her for being aloof or emotionally unavailable, but in truth, she is fiercely present where it matters, fully aware of the terrain and always in control of her boundaries. Her loneliness is her armor, her camouflage, and her method of self-preservation. It ensures that she can navigate a world built on social performance, manipulation, and emotional dependency without losing herself. To those who misunderstand her, she seems untouchable, distant, and even intimidating. And that is precisely the point. Her solitude is never a weakness, but a silent power that keeps her untethered, unseen, and unstoppable. In a world obsessed with noise, validation, and constant performance, the Sigma female stands apart, not by accident, but by design. She is a study in contrasts, fierce yet silent, present yet detached, unpredictable yet deliberate. Every choice she makes, every boundary she sets, every moment of solitude she embraces is part of a carefully calculated strategy to protect her autonomy, sharpen her insight, and preserve her power. She moves through life like a shadow in the corner of a crowded room, invisible to the untrained eye, yet observing, analyzing, and understanding more than anyone realizes. Her solitude is not emptiness, it is a fortress. Her detachment is not coldness, it is fireproofing. Her relationships are not democratic, they are selective alignments, chosen to enhance her life rather than dilute it. She treats intimacy, trust, and love as calculated risks, weighing each interaction with precision and never surrendering her sovereignty lightly. She is immune to manufactured status, indifferent to the theatrics of society, and fully aware that true power often comes with isolation. And yet, in her absence, in her quiet observation, she gains the clarity and understanding that eludes those entangled in the illusions of everyday life. The Sigma female is both the threat and the sanctuary, formidable to outsiders, untouchable in her inner world, and relentless in her pursuit of freedom and self-mastery. She doesn't follow the crowd, bend to social expectation, or seek validation. She creates her own rules, walks her own path, and commands her own space. To encounter her is to recognize that true strength rarely announces itself, and true intelligence rarely needs applause. She is a force defined not by how others perceive her, but by how completely she owns herself. If this video resonated with you and you want more insights into the rare, unshakable world of Sigma individuals, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button to support this content, comment below with your thoughts or experiences, and share it with anyone who needs to understand the quiet power of those who walk their own path. Remember, this isn't for everyone, but for those who truly see it, it will change the way you understand independence, strategy, and the quiet mastery of self.